We're live.
Fix the hair.
Steal him time. The hair okay? We looking all right?
A gel,
Love
for
it.
those wondering.
Love it. We are live from Hotel Distill, Louisville, Kentucky, here for the USL Championship Final. Kelsey Steele, Scott Stu, Matt Calvo behind the computer here. Listen, it is the big show. It's time for it. Sunday, November 17th, 7:30 p.m., ESPN2,
Wow.
ESPN Deportes. The whole thing's happening this Sunday. Why are you laughing?
Because we are back in Louisville, a place that I left circa 9 months ago with very fond memories after 2 consecutive USL Championship trophies. And yet I am here alongside you, of all people, for a potential 3rd USL Championship trophy. It's honestly a thing of beauty. We're very blessed.
I think it's only right that you and I reconnect.
Oh, and she is bringing the toast.
No.
She is bringing the toast.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
We have to wait until 7:30.
We will wait forever. Yeah, here, we'll take one over here. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
I think they may have accidentally given me another one.
For those of you who can't see, Old Fashions being delivered here in the beautiful Hotel Distill. 2 weeks they've been up and running here, and it is
It's unbelievable.
A gorgeous place. So
this is literally like what I would picture my dream home to be if I could ever afford a dream home.
Yeah, we could probably just have this place like on rent for this time of the year, the next few years, right?
You know what?
The rate
to be
we're
fair,
going?
I've already booked my travel to Louisville for the next 2 years. I just booked a weekend in November and said, you know what? If I have to change it, I have to change it, but I know where I'm going, Kelsey.
Listen, I just hope that your travel in these next few years are a little bit better than our travel in today. So we're a little bit scarred, you guys. It was about an 8.5 hour trek from Tampa Bay to the beautiful city of Louisville, Kentucky. But we made it, and we are ready to have some USL Championship Final action. So let's get after it. What do you? Oh, wait.
As we are prepared.
As we are ready to go.
What's going on?
Okay, so I don't know if you guys can see this here. We have we've been given a prescription as we raise our glasses here.
A toast to repeal the prohibition of 1933. Absolutely. Cheers on that.
Thank you for repealing the prohibition. That's beautiful. So yeah, a really cool thing the Hotel Distill does is at 7:33 every single night they have a free old fashions out to everybody in the lobby just to kind of celebrate the repeal of the prohibition. So I'm thankful personally.
Yeah, what Kelsey is saying but not saying is Hotel Distill is the place to be in Louisville, Kentucky. So now that we're all here, we can actually get this thing going.
Yeah, let's get it going. So right out of the gate, Louisville, let's see, they sold 1,000 tickets in the first 10 minutes. Brad Estes put that on blast on Twitter earlier today. And then all of the public sales sold out in about 96 minutes. So already sold out, packed house. If you want to get into this game on Sunday, it's on a waiting list already. So best of luck. I've already put Scott's credential up for grabs. So slide into the DMs there.
Wow, what a hot rumor that's flying through USL HQ right now, honestly. That is just something else, to be fair.
You don't really need him there. No one really wants him back. So, you can just watch from Hotel Distill at this
It's honestly kind of shocking that I'm even here in the first place. I think there were many, many protests, and yet, here we are sitting in the lobby.
Here we are, USL Championship Final. We're going to get after it. Ryan Madden's going to join us a little bit later. I think we've got some Coopers sitting around here. Our man Jeff Reuter from the Athletics hanging about as well. So for the 3rd time, possibly he'll hop on. We'll see if we can swing that. But you guys, we're pumped. We wanted to have our man Jake Edwards come on, but being the president of the USL Championships kind of a big deal, and we got blown off by Jake Edwards.
Blown off is a little harsh. I think that we were politely rescheduled by the man who schedules all.
I just want to say that in the office this week, he went at me saying that I cannot believe it took the entire season to get me on your podcast. He was mad. He was not happy.
You know what?
Scott.
To be fair, though, I think that's kind of a reasonable shout from Jake. I think that we probably could have had Jake on maybe just a little bit earlier than we have.
I mean, I was just trying to give him his platform, just going off with the big man in charge, and apparently we got what was coming to us.
It is fair. I would like to ask him about the the thought process behind a few of his tweets, but I think that he's like overall just very, very set in stone on being our boss. So
yeah, well,
when we are joined by Jake, it will be an absolute privilege.
I cannot wait for that moment. But until then, we're going to run through our favorite moments of the postseason. So in natural fashion here, as Scott's drinking an old fashioned. You see what I did there? Yeah,
I do.
You like
I
that?
absolutely loathe it, but I did see it.
We made our pick to the beginning of the season. Scott and I laid out our bracket. I had the Eastern Conference. Scott had the Western. So we figured now that we're at this final moment of the postseason that Scott and I would each pick our favorite memory of the postseason. And then, of course, we'll get into the matchup itself and maybe have on a friendly face or two. So, Scott, I want to give you the honor first here. A lot of notable things happening in the last few weeks throughout the postseason in the Western Conference. Obviously, the king of the West goes down. Phoenix goes out the door, and then we have the underdog kind of rise in the Monarchs and plant their seed here in the final. But if there's one moment that you take away from this postseason that's the most memorable for you, your favorite moment, and again, this could be anything. This could be, your favorite result, your favorite goal, or
Am I allowed,
something
like,
that you
a couple?
personally.
Do I have to boil it down to one?
You guys,
what if
I
quick?
prefaced Scott about this question
What if I'm quick about
beforehand.
it? What if I'm just kind of speedy?
Are you quick about anything, Scott?
No,
That's
not really.
no.
So,
I'll give you your time.
All
We're
right,
here. We're
all
at the
right,
Hotel
all
Distill. What do you got? Western Conference favorite moments postseason?
I think the first one has to be, obviously, listen, let me get it out of the way, like the elephant in the room. The Phoenix moment is really not my favorite thing at all, honestly.
Notable, but not favorite.
No, exactly. I picked Phoenix going all the way. I picked Phoenix as our championship final winner. I am not exactly on Team Phoenix Rising FC as we get something. What is this lovely offering?
Complimentary
pin.
Absolutely,
Absolutely a complimentary pin.
Beautiful.
I would more than
Thank
love
you
one.
so much. Oh,
1933
forever.
Naturally.
Repeal the prohibition, baby.
Repeal
Love
it. No, so the Phoenix moment really isn't even it for me. I mean, I think first off, it's got to be El Paso's first ever home game. I think that was an incredible testament to what they're building in El Paso. Obviously, we talk a lot about Coach Mark Lowry. We talk a lot about that group in general. I mean, what El Paso has done to date is remarkable. Goal has to be Thomas Enevoldsen against New Mexico United. The volley to win it all. I think that was it.
Too.
Yeah, it did. But honestly, I mean, I think we had a really entertaining Western Conference final. I think I've got to go El Paso home game, though. Just being fair to the expansion side, who has been consistently good on the field, at least from August on. We'll not mention the previous months, but good on the field and incredibly, incredibly successful off the field. Not just from an attendance perspective, but really from a planting their roots in that city and reflecting what that city and what that community wants to be about. I think that's just as important as anything. So they've got the people, they've got the results, obviously. Even though the Monarchs had the last laugh, that's where we're at.
You and I talked about this last week. We said that going through the past meetings between our Western Conference finalists and our Eastern Conference finalists, we knew that both of these finals were going to be competitive. And I think we can even go on record saying that we both said that this was going to go into extra time. If you look at the way that these two teams played and all of the results, I mean, it was almost inevitable, and it was.
I mean, you hammered on the fact that it was 0-0 for two games, and what was it, 1-1 for the other one?
Games for Indy.
Yeah, I mean, very, very tight, very close. It made all the sense in the world, and obviously we got a really good show out of both the East and the West last weekend.
And it was awesome to see a packed house at Zion's Bank as well.
And
that gorgeous setting.
Crowd's in it.
Making history over there at Zion's Bank. So I like your pick, and I think Enevoldsen, we've talked about it.
Thank you for respecting me.
Once and one time only. He's made a serious impact on that side too. So I like you going on that side.
Someone said something about that a few months ago.
Oh,
was it you?
God.
I don't remember. Anyway. It's your day now. It's your day now.
It's been 10 hours in a row with you, and I'm already.
She's had a really tough day just in terms of dealing with the constant conversation, bullishness of Matt Calvo, clearly. So anyway.
You guys, just to preface this, I was put behind directly behind Scott in our second flight to to Louisville. And at this point, I'm like a full coffee in, like ready to go.
She is wired.
And I told him, I was like, your deepest fear right now should be the fact that I'm sitting directly behind you, because there could be a million ways that this could go.
And my response?
I don't remember what you did say. You were,
I said, if you kick the back of my chair one time, I will cry like a baby the entire flight and exclusively blame you. So,
a man of his word, Scott Steele.
Yeah, that's it. Anyway, the East, please.
Eastern Conference. Listen, I thought long and hard about this, and for me, there was one defining moment. I think there were many great moments. I think that, Pittsburgh's absolute thrashing in the quarterfinal is something to be noteworthy, and I think it's something that they really needed from its side that just didn't score a lot of goals.
Oh yeah,
I think Louisville
used them all.
Playing against all of the elements and not allowing Tampa Bay to come back and repeat history. I think that was massive as well. I said it a million times, I never thought Indy would be able to go past Nashville. So I mean, there was a lot of moments in time that I was really impressed by. But for me, the biggest moment of the Eastern Conference side of the postseason was Antoine Openo's equalizer this past weekend. I think, I will totally own up to it being the easy pick, but
No, I don't. All right. Let me respectfully disagree. Give you some credit here.
Okay, yeah.
You could have picked Magnus's goal. You could have picked Luke's penalty. Like, you could have gone with the decider. You picked the one that everyone had their eyes on, though, and that I respect.
So for me, there was a few reasons that I wanted to go with Antoine's equalizer. One, I think that his finish with 90-ish seconds left in that match in stoppage time is everything that Louisville stands for. And that's kind of what stands above all for me. I think that this is a side, and we've now touched on it a few times, they refuse to give up. And I talked to Antoine after the game, and I was like, this one was over. You guys were pressing hard, but at that point, Indy was just like pushing everything back out as much as they can. It was in my people on the Indy sidelines, supporters, they were all celebrating. That one was, it seemed like it was in wraps. And then Antoine equalized it, and he was like, it wasn't over to us.
So I do have a question. Obviously you were there on site. What was the overall vibe, stadium reaction, environment, et cetera, around Openo's equalizer? Because it had to have been just nuts.
From which,
just in general. Was it quiet outside of one big pocket? Because listen, I know we give them credit all the time, but the Louisville City fans who traveled for that game were very, very present and very impressive.
I'm going to be completely honest with you. I was standing in front of BYB and Slaughterhouse. Like, I was right in front, and the cheering and noise was piercing from the Louisville fans and the Coopers, everybody that traveled. You would have not had a single clue that was a home game in that moment unless you were standing exactly where I was looking at the Indy supporters. It was fantastic.
And obviously both sets of supporters in the East are fantastic, but it goes to show that Louisville is there on the field when it counts and off the field when it counts. Because they're there to see it.
The Brickyard Battalion is not quiet, but we can't say on a live stream what they were saying.
That absolutely makes sense to many people in this room. But yeah, that's a moment.
And for Antoine to just straight up be like, Kelsey, that was never something that crossed our minds ever. And he might say that. I get it. Any athlete's probably going to say that in that moment because that's supposed to be their mentality. You just kind of feel it with this club.
And like you and I talked about this midweek, it's like as soon as Speedy got booked for that like late takedown, and Indy not necessarily was killing time, but Indy was just, they were taking their time. In my head, I am very willing to admit that was it for me. In my head, I said Indy's going to host the USL Championship final. What an incredible performance. Like, I don't want to say that I counted Louisville out, but I counted Louisville out.
I'll say it. At that moment, are you kidding me?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry for my Indy treated me really well, and I
yeah.
really appreciate all of their hospitality. But everyone was hugging and congratulating each other behind me before that final whistle was blown, and I was very much like, I went up to Trey, an Indy's PR guy, and I was like, "Congratulations, man!" And then Antoine and company made us look like complete fools.
Because it's what you said. I mean, how do you leave Antoine Hopeno, of all people, unmarked?
Yeah.
Unmarked.
And I mean, so that brings
goalkeeper
in
positioning. Jordan Farr owned up to it. It's just like it's a tough way to go down for Indy. But you're absolutely right. It's just Louisville's resilience.
And it brings in point number 2 for me, right? So Antoine Hopeno began the 2019 season in a completely different kit. So take away
in
Louisville,
that green and yellow.
Take away everything. This was never something that Antoine Hopeno was envisioning could happen. Maybe in 85-degree weather wearing green, but never this exact moment in purple and with that kind of dramatics associated with it. I mean, that was something for me that I was like, this mid-season switch was Lucky Mkosana and Antoine moving into this side. He brought, I think, what Louisville really, really needed.
Yeah, he's a spark.
And he fit in so well. I mean, he has really become such a pivotal part of this offense. And, I think it's interesting, too, a guy coming from the West, coming into the East, like he's seen it all as well.
So my question, I just going back to the whole mentality question, this is consistent messaging from Louisville. You've seen it from Hopeno. You've seen it from Hackworth. Obviously, you guys are who put together a lot of the terrific social media graphics. Do you believe it? Do you believe that this Louisville City side has that mentality after however long they've been putting together successful runs? Is it real? Is it something that absolutely exists, or is it coach speak? Is it player speak after a game when things end up going your way?
Right.
But could have very easily not.
I honestly, one of the things that I love about this Louisville side is there's no talk there. These guys, from the front office side of things. I know you've seen many other side of things, but
no, they don't. That's it, though. That's it.
See, and for me, I really respect an organization that puts product before talk. So
but this is what I like about both sides, honestly, both Monarchs and Louisville.
Agreed.
We let whatever happens in terms of speaking, opinions, whatever it is, that is all left to us to do on the field. And both sides showed it this weekend. And that's why we're here. That's why we're in Louisville, Kentucky, waiting for Monarchs SLC against Louisville City. It's just like they spoke, they backed it up, and now we're ready for it.
It's something you have to love. Not even as someone who works for the league, but as a sports fan.
Yeah.
I genuinely love the fact that we have a club that walks the walk. They are professionals in and out. They know what it means to bring the energy. I mean, we're in May, June, and we're like, well, it's not happening this year for this club. And we're like, well, this season is 33 weeks long. So let's have a conversation here again when it comes time.
Oh, yeah.
And they just, I respect the leadership so much on this side. That there's not a selfish person on this club. And I think when you look grand scheme of things, that's what makes them so successful. And you've got guys who are really bought into the club and what, Brad Estes and this ownership group and Hack, what they're all trying to do here. Because, you have 8 guys who were on that 2017 team who are still on, 11 from the 2018 championship team. You've got guys who choose to stay in Louisville because of the culture that's been created here. And I think that's extremely special.
It's just a consistent measure of success. And for them, success is nothing less than we want to lift 2 trophies at the end of the year. Ideally 3 with the Open Cup. And they obviously made a great dent in that last year. But we want the Eastern Conference trophy. We want the USL Championship Final trophy. And that's it. Anything less is just not going to be good enough for us. And consistency is important. It's been vital to keep this group together. But just going back to what you and I talked about a couple weeks ago, I think it's all the testament in the world to John Hackworth's ability to step in a situation that wasn't totally in his control last year, win the championship final in 18 over an incredibly talented Phoenix team, bring back enough guys for 19, and now they are doing it all again. Completely against the odds, not your odds, because I know you obviously had them very far.
Can
But yeah, it's just been an unbelievable ride from Louisville City. And obviously both them and Monarchs are going to think like, we've got one more to go though. Like this is cool, but we've got one more to go.
This is not by chance.
Yeah.
They're not here for the third year in a row by chance. I mean, this is a culture. This is something that I am so impressed by what Hack was able to come in and continue. And it's, I feel truly blessed that we're able to watch this dynasty.
Oh yeah,
You know,
absolutely, absolutely.
And we spoke on it. I mean, if I had to wrap it, like totally like nail in the coffin here, why that moment's the best of this entire postseason, it's the fact that I was there for it. I got to see it all unwind, and it was in that exact moment that I was like, it's over.
Well,
we're in extra time. Louisville's got it. They're going to come in, and within 4 minutes in extra time, they score.
Well, and we talk about like, oh, Louisville on the road, Louisville on the road, Louisville on the road. Pittsburgh, 118th minute, Palo Duro Piccolo. Indy, Hopino's equalizer into stoppage time. Then Magnus and added time. What, like 3 minutes into added time? 4 minutes in.
Yeah.
It's just this Louisville City side knows no end, and even if they lose on Sunday, the work that they've put in to get to this point should never go. Not just unnoticed, but should never not be praised, you know? And again, I think there's something up Monarch's sleeve. I'm going to save our prediction for when we actually get into the game. But, yeah, this Louisville City side has done something that quite literally no one in the championship's history has been able to do. To be a 4 seed, to host the championship final, and to knock down both Pittsburgh and Indy on their way to it. It's been an incredible showing so far.
I will say, to kind of recap what we're looking at in terms of what this postseason has become, you know, as we're here in fruition and everything's on the table now, I think it is exactly what people like us who have worked all these games, watched this, you know, entire 33-week season go by. It's exactly what we could have imagined.
Oh,
there was a 4
down.
to 16 race this entire season in the Eastern Conference. We knew that in one different movement would change everything for one of these clubs. I mean, I think this is exactly what we could have expected. I mean, we were there's a simple reason that we were left with our top 4 when it came to semis time.
Yeah.
And I think the Western Conference completely played that card as well. We had no idea what was going to happen. People had Phoenix going all the way. Scott Stewart had Phoenix going all the way.
You need scarves.
Oh.
You need scarves.
Uh-oh. We've been gifted.
Yes.
Is this allowed? Purple looks
Unlikely,
fun on you.
but
It's almost like you've worn it a time or two.
Done this once or twice.
Did we just make were we on the same
I'm undoing
right
this
now?
due to the fact that we just did that at the exact same time. I am now removing myself from this situation.
Let's get into the game.
Absolutely. Sunday night, 7:30 p.m. ESPN 2, ESPN Deportes. This is an absolute must see. And I mean, obviously, like, oh, the league folks telling us like, oh, you got to see it. This is legit though.
Our job,
folks. Like,
for real.
Had it been 2 other teams, I'm sure we obviously would have spouted the company line like, oh, make sure you tune in. But I genuinely believe this is one of, if not the most exciting final we've had in some time. And Louisville Phoenix was fantastic in 18. Louisville Swope was pretty good in 17. I think this one has major potential.
It's fun too because we have 2 number 4 seeds. Which
lowest
is
seed
like
to ever win? Yeah.
Lowest seed to ever win. Yep.
Here we go.
I believe Nicholas Murray's stat line was no one above number 3 has ever won.
Okay.
Nicholas might correct me on that.
3 seed just one time?
I believe that, yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, we've got number 4 seeds, and Louisville just edged out the Monarchs for getting that hosting agreement. I think it was a point, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that we could easily be in Salt Lake right now, which honestly might be warmer. I don't know.
You know what? We don't really know. It's 25 degrees in Harriman, Utah right now. So, 25 minutes. No. So not quite 25 degrees, but I'm sure we would have to play a game called Who Can Race to the Top of the Mountain, and I would let Kelsey win, just full disclosure.
Not by chance I would have won.
But I'm not sure where we'd be warmer. I know that the fact that we're here, though, I don't think is coincidental. I'll say that much.
No, nothing happens by chance in this league. I'll tell you that. So let's talk about how they got there. Monarchs have an absolute thrashing over Orange County, 6-2. And to put it in a picture here, the Monarchs come into this matchup the highest goal scoring team at this point in time in the entire 3 seasons. It's incredible. So they beat Orange County 6-2. The semifinals, they have the absolute biggest upset of the postseason. They send Phoenix home 2-1. And of course, in the conference final.
Wow, what an incredible game from both sides.
Yeah. It's what you want. It's what you want in the postseason.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what you live for. Frankly, Phoenix was probably lucky to make it out of that Austin match. You know, they knew that they were going to be it was going to be a tough showdown the following week, and sure enough, it was.
It's just so hard for me to come to terms with that, though, just because of how incredible Phoenix was. You know, like I understand that when you look at like the numbers and you look at what it took for Phoenix to get over Austin, man. I know, but also numbers don't lie, according to a couple of ESPN programs that have been on the air for a few years.
Here's the thing: if there's anything that this league has taught not only us who work for it, but people who are fans of this league, is that the regular season just doesn't matter.
No, and that's a very fair point, especially when you look at the West. I'm sure that there are people out there who have made the argument consistently. I just think, and I think the Monarchs deserved it. Don't get me wrong. I would never question their pedigree to be where they're at now. It's just like, but that Phoenix game, I mean, the ball, and we talked about this even last week when we were talking about predictions. The ball has to bounce your way every once in a while, and it really, really did for the Monarchs that night.
Monarchs move past Phoenix. They meet El Paso. El Paso has a chance to do really the unthinkable, not able to get it done. They do go to extra time. The Monarchs take that one 2-1. I mean, El Paso's down to 10 men for 70
Yeah,
minutes?
Good while.
I mean,
a good while.
A good minute. So, Monarchs eventually book their ticket. And then at the same exact time, this was really difficult, too, to keep up at the same time because I'm like on site at Indy trying to pay attention to what's going on in the Western Conference. And I'm like, what? Were you kidding me? We're both on extra time right now? Oh, my God. It's like I was right. Oh, wait, I was. And we have Louisville and Indy. So Louisville, conference quarterfinal, beat the Tampa Bay Rowdies 2-1 in just the absolute, most treacherous conditions. That probably could have gone one way or another if a ball took a skid the right direction.
We'll see that at Lynn Stadium next year. I'm almost positive we'll see Louisville and Tampa Bay at Lynn Stadium
hopefully
next year.
Not the near amount of rain or
torrential downpour or not. We were absolutely there for that one.
And then they had the conference semifinals. Take down the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. We're talking about an Eastern Conference team that had probably the strongest turn into the postseason. It's Pittsburgh.
Please take your moment, though. Go ahead. Please take your moment.
I just, everything said to pick Pittsburgh, and I had this instinct in me that Louisville instilled.
A little bit louder now.
I had to go with Lou City on that one, and again, Papa Steele always says, trust your gut, trust your instinct, no matter what.
I do genuinely appreciate some Papa Steele advice. Yeah, that man very rarely seems to be wrong.
He was a hit in Indy, and I kind of feel like he's taken my street cred a little bit. So that might be the last reference from Papa Steele for a while. He goes really getting to his head. Yeah, so Louisville takes Pittsburgh in extra time. They take that 1-2-1, and then of course that just absolute barn burner of a game against Indy last week in the conference final, again in extra time, eventually take that one 3-1. So now here we are, the final 2 remaining. And Scott, for me, my favorite part of finally being in this moment is that we get to see the East and the West meet. And the entire season, all we have to deal with and hear, and somebody who works in social in my mentions is, oh, the West isn't competitive enough. It doesn't compare to the East, or the East is it's the same people we're picking over and over again in the East, and the West is it could be anyone. This is where you put that to bed. And for me, I would love, to be able to see more interconference play, obviously throughout the year. We have so many teams, so many very talented teams in our league. I think it'd be really exciting to see more of that.
Just pick the home team.
We'll get into that, I think. But yeah, so I think it's interesting to kind of see what that's gonna come about. I think we talked to Joe Greenspan earlier in the season, and he was talking about the Eastern Conference it's so difficult to have a number 1 team up there for such a period of time because the parity right now in the league it's just so high.
But it's what you said earlier. It's not that the regular season doesn't matter. It's just that teams with the pedigree of a Louisville City FC they don't need the regular season to prove themselves, right? And it's a long regular season. I mean, we had 34 games this year for each club. It's just like, of course, you can prove yourself in terms of seeding. You can show what you've got in terms of late wins, goals scored, whatever you want to measure yourselves by. But the point is, we've now got 2 4 seeds in the championship final, who I genuinely believe both of them believed they would be here at this point in time.
I love that. I love that.
I don't know how you measure this one properly, but I do know that we are in for a slugfest on Sunday night.
Let's talk about measuring that. So I think what's interesting about this matchup is the Monarchs are without Douglas Martinez, who is the team's leading goal scorer. Someone's got to step up. Who do you think's going to step up?
Jack Blake, for one. Blake, for sure. I think Michael Chang is another very obvious pick, but I think even someone like Justin Portillo, who has not necessarily been like the highest flyer for a club like Monarchs, I think that's what's maybe most dangerous about really both teams, but especially when we talk about the Monarchs. They've got a lot of guys who are willing to contribute where contribution isn't necessarily asked for in that way. So Luke Mulholland, Tate Schmidt, these are guys who are comfortable flying under the radar because they know their contributions don't need recognition because of what their contributions end up bringing to the teams.
You want to talk about flying under the radar? One man in our league who does not get nearly enough credit that he deserves is Speedy Williams.
Oh, my gosh.
The work that he does in the midfield is unbelievable.
Unreal.
And I think that we're going to see that.
This man scored his first goal for Jamaica this year, just a couple months ago.
Good for you, Speedy.
Unreal.
He's a real talent and honestly, just a really great dude.
Yeah.
So I think that's interesting as well. One of the things that I find really interesting about this matchup, and you touched on it earlier, is there's this home and away thing we have kind of floating here and in the air, whatever it may be. In the 8 previous meetings of the USL Championship Final, a team on the road has never taken the trophy home. The Monarchs had the chance to do that.
Bodes well for Louisville. You'd say that.
It does bode well for. I mean, we want to talk about. You have a Louisville side that has so much experience, and we talked to Chris Tierpach early in the year, and I was like, Chris, just like tell me straight up, man, what's the deal?
I am still waiting on my headband, but
yeah, we'll talk about that. That's a different conversation. Yeah. I was like, Chris, what's the deal? Like, why can't you guys figure it out? Like, as a league, I'm talking broad here. Why is there such a differentiation between home and away? You guys have enough time to travel, get yourselves acclimated. Does home field really play that much of an advantage? And I remember point blank saying, I don't know, Kelsey, when you figure it out, can you let me know? I'm like, why is this on me?
Appreciate the candor, Chris. Absolutely.
But it's a real thing in our league.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's something to be said about that. I mean, you have a Monarch side who's very, very good at home, who really likes Zion's big stadium. Put them on the road. They're not going to be playing in that elevation. They don't have any of those elements to deal with. I think it's in that, I think if you were to switch that scenario and send Louisville in, that definitely would have been a challenge for them to have to deal with there. But I mean, you have a Louisville City side who's hosting the championship final at Lynn Stadium for the second year in a row. They've never lost at Lynn, Scott. And I'm not talking championship final. I'm talking Open Cup as well. Period. I mean, if you're, and you know this club better than anyone, is there just a level of confidence that goes into a meeting like this?
I mean, I think for Louisville City, like, they are going to approach this game different than they approached the New England Revolution game in the Open Cup last year. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think the unbeaten stat goes well in their favor, of course, but I think Louisville's confidence is born from not just prior success, and that's very important to emphasize that. I mean, of course they're going to believe, hey, we've won 2 straight, why can't we do a third?
Right.
But it's also just the current side's ability, and you have to genuinely back John Hackworth, Coach Danny Cruz, Coach Scott Budnick, Operations Director Andrew DeLallo, the entire technical staff alongside the incredible 23, 24 players they have on that roster. This is a team that knows what it takes to get it done. and believes they can get it done regardless of what stands in their way.
I mean, belief goes a long way in situations like this. And you have a side like Louisville, and we touched on earlier, who experience is probably the highest in the league at this level, especially with guys you're talking about who's returning, who's been in these situations,
they could become the first team in the championship's history to win 3.
Okay, so
it's massive.
Let's counter that. You have a side in the Monarchs who are coming.
Oh, here we go. I'm ready for this one.
I'm just saying, like,
no, I am.
Would you rather have that kind of weight, all of these stat lines, record breaking, everything on your shoulders? Or would you rather be the Monarchs to come in as the underdog? I would always rather be the underdog, come in, blow everyone's minds, and say, you guys weren't paying attention to us all year long, which we've heard them. I mean, they've been saying that,
absolutely.
They haven't gotten nearly the recognition they deserve. And I mean, they're here now for a reason.
Players,
like,
we've been left off the recognition list.
They're fired up, and rightfully so. They're here for a reason. They've got a point to prove. And guess what? There's no one, there's no, that's the best kind of situation to go into.
Absolutely.
So.
And especially without Douglas Martinez, in the Monarchs' mind, the pressure is all on Louisville City FC. You're the host. You're going for the Triple Crown. You've been here before. You know what it takes. You've got a full, healthy complement of players. We don't.
I see the Monarchs coming in right away and pressing early. I think Louisville's aside.
Okay, so we're getting in the game here.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, I like it. I like it. Let's do it.
We've been shooting. Oh, I can't say that on camera. But yeah, I mean, we've been going at it for a little while now. I think that they're going to come in pressing early because I think that they probably realize that they need to attack, and they attack early because Louisville's a side that kind of likes to settle in. I think that before you see what Louisville's going to bring in the final, you got to give them like 15 minutes. They're going to settle in, feel you out a little bit. I mean, they're especially against a side they've never seen before. That's a big part in it as well. But when we're talking about a very, very fun matchup, I'm looking directly at this midfield because I think I mentioned it last week. My favorite part about this Monarch side is that they are so tactically sound that they could play small side for days with their eyes closed. They have so much control. They possess the ball in such small spaces under such pressure. And you would never know that these guys are like 23, 24.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're incredibly experienced.
They're incredibly experienced for being so young. And it's almost like flip of the table for Louisville. You know what I mean? So, I think they're going to go into this and realize that I don't care how many times these guys have been here. I don't care how much older they are than us. If they've been around the block a time or two. I think that there might be a level of confidence going into it with this Louisville side, but I think the Monarchs are going to bring a level of confidence that nobody's expecting because I think this is a midfield that is extremely confident in who they are and what they bring to the table and guys who have something to prove.
So am I allowed to respectfully, of course, disagree?
I mean, you usually do anyway, so.
Sometimes less than respectfully, so I appreciate your blessing. I think that the Monarchs are going to wait for their moment. I really do.
Okay.
I think that in their mind, we don't want to wake a sleeping giant. We don't necessarily want to throw a haymaker right away because we know we can't knock Louisville out in the 15th minute. Yeah. So I think their approach, either one of these outcomes, legitimately, whether the Monarchs come out hot or whether they come out staving for their moment, I'm excited for either outcome. But I believe that the visitors will come in and say, okay, Phoenix tried to come out hot last year. It didn't work. Swope waited.
That's a fair point.
But Swope waited, and it also didn't work. So which approach do we take? I think Jamison Olave, coach of the month for October, very well deserved. I think Jamison Olave says to his team, guys, some of you have played here, Tate Schmidt, U of L Cardinal grad.
How did it take us this long to bring up good old Tate Schmidt? Yeah, welcome home, buddy.
Welcome home, Tate, obviously. But I think that he goes in there and he says, guys, this Louisville team has every reason to believe they're going to do this. Let's be the reason they won't. And then he waits and waits and waits, and almost like Scorpion-esque, the stinging tail hits Louisville at the right moment. And this isn't my prediction, but this is how I feel the Monarchs.
Until he's right. And then he's like, I'm calling it.
Right. But this is how I think the Monarchs approach this game is, let's wait. We're okay. We know that Louisville has the ability to come back. We would rather them try and come back for a late goal than come back against an early goal and really put the foot on this. So with 7,000 plus screaming Louisville fans, I think the Monarchs say, let's be patient. Let's take our time.
That's so interesting.
You got to go, listen, it's going to be a clear night, so we know weather's not a big factor. But you are going into one of the most, I don't want to say hostile, because Louisville City fans are incredibly welcoming and very, very friendly. But they are intimidating when it comes to an atmosphere.
So to counter that, like, that's my point, is I think if like, you're Monarchs, you want to disrupt that right away. I don't think
But
why do you wait that out? Why do you let Louisville get settled?
Well, my
I'm
thought
not letting
process
Brian Ownby
is
get settled. I am not letting Magnus Rasmussen get settled.
But I think that's the thing. I don't think you have to strike back immediately to disrupt them. I think you can disrupt them from the get-go, whether it's tactical fouls, whether it's slowing the game down, whether it's taking the sting out of the Louisville City side before you physically take the sting out. I think both outcomes are possible, and that's why I don't want to say, like, I completely disagree with what you're saying, because I very much think that the Monarchs can come out hot, and that's their approach. For me, though, it's more just we can be disruptive without actually disrupting them on the score line. We can let them know we're here. We can be physical. We can be very tactical in our approach, and then wait for our moment still have it happen.
I should be clear. By pressing, I didn't mean that they necessarily score right away. Or
sure,
score
you just mean high tempo, high energy. They're out there. They're
very
lightning.
high tempo. I think they're going to be all over them right away, because we're talking about tempo and control of the game. The Monarchs are best when they have the ball at their feet and when they're able to kind of weave their way around to the midfield.
But this is the beauty of this Cup final, especially. From a pure scoring standpoint, you had Louisville, who scored first half last year,
yes.
Right? Louisville, who scored 82nd minute in 17. I think the point is their moment will come. How prepared is the opposition for that one moment?
And that's why I say you come out hot first, because I think Louisville's they're gonna come at you no matter what time. Like at some point in the game, they're gonna settle in, and then they're gonna get in their own. That's why I think you have to capitalize early.
So can you bank on the Monarchs getting a 2-goal lead at any point in time?
No, definitely not.
But that's where I'm on team energy conservation, and I'm not like solely like, again, this isn't set in stone. This isn't like I'm absolutely dedicated to this, but it's more just like I'm pretty dedicated to the fact that I think that Louisville has every ability to do exactly what they need to do. I just think the Monarchs are going to be patient. I think they're going to take their time on this one.
Are we supposed to smile now?
Yeah, we absolutely are.
I appreciate you all.
What a group. What a crowd. What a crowd.
Ryan Madden, why don't
An
you stick
incredible
around for a
group
hot
here.
sec, man?
Yeah, do you want to just take this from me?
Yeah, you got to go socialize a little bit.
I don't need to.
Yeah, it's really difficult. God, dude never shuts up.
Is this one working?
Ryan Madden, sit down, my man. All right, so for those of you who aren't familiar with Ryan Madden, which I mean is just such a blessing, really. Yeah,
Is it?
I'm sorry for what's about to happen. Our lovely VP of Communications and PR, Ryan Madden, who joined the league this season, or I should say the end of last season.
Yeah.
So I think what's interesting right out of the gate here is you're somebody coming into the league who hasn't kind of been here from day one.
I know.
So I'm interested to see what your perception has been like prior to joining the ranks of Lovely USL to now being in here for 2 USL Championship finals.
My second week on the job was last year's final. So
That's just throwing him in the den.
So yeah, it was trial by fire to some extent. But what struck me was like the ferocity of the fan bases.
Mm-hmm.
If you remember last year's final, it was Didier Drogba. His last match. He's retiring. There's 7,000 fans. The Coopers are lighting smoke. Like the environment is just overflowing with energy. It was incredible. And that so far exceeded the expectations that I had coming into this role that, I don't know, it was like professionally, it was one of the most fulfilling things I've ever been a part of. And then to build on that for an entire year and get better and see the fan bases grow even more and to see the league grow even more and to make announcements like San Diego and Queens, and even from a digital and communication standpoint, we've gotten better, over the last year. And then now we're back in Louisville and we're going to pack that place out again. But I think the main difference is now they have an 11,500 seat soccer specific stadium that's being constructed off in the distance. And it's crazy. It's symbolic of where the league's heading. And I don't know, you hear me say it all the time, but the future is just insanely bright.
I think it's interesting too to get your feedback on this because I interact with players on a good bit, especially when traveling. And I was just talking to Drew Connor last week, and he was like, I've played for quite a few different teams at this point, and he's like, I've never experienced anything like I have here in Indianapolis in terms of the player fan relationship. So he's like, in so many situations, it's been like you're looking at a player from afar and you're really just idolizing this guy. And you're like, wow, like what a really cool dude. Not that Drew Connor's still not a really cool dude. But he's like, in this league, you have the chance to actually be friends with somebody, with a fan.
They're accessible, right?
They're accessible,
and they're just a normal part of your community. You're going to see them at the grocery store, or the dry cleaners, or wherever. I go to the dry cleaners. Mine delivered.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not on that pay grade, so nice drop there.
But I think, there was when I was talking about professional sports the other day with someone, it was like comparing the different professional leagues. And it was like NFL is very much about the brands, and NBA is very much about the players. Like soccer at its core is really about the fans. Like that's why you don't hear the term supporters culture in other professional sports league in the United States. That term is specific to soccer, and it's specific to soccer because the average fan goes to a soccer match for two reasons. One, yes, to see 22 dudes kick a bag of air around the field, right? But also because they want to see the supporters groups and the energy behind it, and the scarves and the chanting and the smoke and all of those things. And all of those things are unique to our sport, and they make our sport special. So you look at a place like Louisville, and they have 2-3 different supporters groups, and Lou City is like a genuine representation of this community, and people associate their home to their club. Like that's where like the magic happens. That's super special, and
it's something that you're super in touch with, right? So you mentioned San Diego, you mentioned Queens. If we want to even backpedal a little bit, what New Mexico United's done this year, the clubs are really finding a way to latch on to the community aspect.
That's right.
So I might put you on the spot here for a second, but what do you think from a new brand standpoint? So, I mean, if you're talking to Queens or you're talking to San Diego, how do you build that culture? Because, I mean, soccer fans are there, obviously, or else there wouldn't be a team. But how do you create that connection between fans?
I think it's the most important question you can ask when starting a new professional sports organization. And the answer at its core is that professional sports teams do not, just by their mere existence, have some divine right to be supported. Like you don't just get to have fans just because you exist,
there.
Right? Like so the answer is that you have to go to your fans. You have to go and you have to get to know them. You have to show up to the same bars on Saturday mornings to watch Premier League, and you have to get to know them on a human level, right? And you have to build relationships one by one. And if you do that for long enough over a period of time, all of a sudden you have 7, 8, 9, 10, 11,000 friends who are showing up to the stadium every night and who are supporting your cause. And that's cool. And that's different than just saying, we're selling dollar hot dogs tonight. Like, come out, right? That's a different model.
Love dollar dogs for
love
sure.
dollar dogs. Love it. I want to be on the record about that. I do love dollar dogs.
Ryan Madden on the record.
I'm on there. Love dollar dogs. But at its core, it's like you got to go out and you got to meet people and you got to get to know them. You got to build relationships. Scott's back.
Shocker. Big dollar beer.
Does that mic work? Where did you find that mic? That does not work. It does not work.
Not working.
I just want to say my prediction and then just...
We're going to go down the line here. Can you wait your turn, please?
Yeah.
All right, Ryan Madden. I appreciate all of your input. And
it was wonderful spending time with you. But I do. Can we bring Jeff on for a second? Jeff's here.
I want to work our way down, and then I'll move you out, and Jeff can.
So I'm just gonna awkwardly slide off screen.
There it is. Scott left again, and I wanted him for this. This is like too difficult. But before you go, Ryan, I want to get our line of predictions. He's back. Want to get your line of predictions here. So. Sunday, November 17th, 7:30 p.m. ESPN 2, ESPN Deportes.
Yes.
Who lifts the trophy?
Oh my gosh, I don't even think I'm like by my job description allowed to answer that
really?
question.
Because Scott and I do this all the time. Is that not allowed?
No, yeah, you
Might
guys
get,
are allowed.
Fined or something.
Oh, all right. Well, Jeff just instilled a little bit of confidence in me. I
Probably should
think
the opposite of what he says.
Look, I think whenever you I'll just say this. A visiting team has never won the USL
You're
championship final.
PRing the crap out of this answer right now. I
So,
can't even handle
regardless of my personal opinion, I would just say that history would lead one to believe that the host will, in all likelihood, lift the trophy. I really enjoyed my time here. I want to thank you for having me. Kelsey Steele, the voice of USLsoccer.com, number 7 on the field, number 1 in your hearts. We love her. Man, do we love her. Here's Jeff.
Ryan Madden, appreciate you stepping on, my man, and for that elaborate yet awful
I can't
prediction.
beat that. I can't beat that. I really can't.
I don't want to exactly get into your prediction here, Jeff,
I don't know where
because
my
I
whiskey
think
went.
we
I'm
need to
nervous.
talk tactics a little bit here. And first of all, welcome.
Thank
Is this
you.
your first time in Louisville?
Yes, this is my first time in Louisville.
You just landed like a few hours ago, right?
Yeah, a couple hours ago. I
For-
rushed here to make sure I could make this show, and then I almost didn't make it onto the show because you guys were talking about, I don't know, energy conservation.
Loyal following. Sometimes you can't get Scott Sue to shut up. It's like a
That's
real
real.
issue.
That's real.
So talk to me a little bit about, obviously you're here now for the final, which is nice. You've got a few days here to kind of get acquainted and talk to some porters and players and coaches, all that good stuff.
Right.
But when Scott and I were talking a few minutes ago, we do not agree on how we believe that the Monarchs are going to come out in this one. So I'm interested for someone who's covered this league all season long. You're
Right.
the resident expert. I think that you actually do
Okay.
have something called expert predictions.
So
I
I was
like,
involved with that.
it is involved. I'm interested to see how you think that this Monarch side is going to come in to this game on Sunday.
You know, I thought I knew, Kelsey, I really did. And then Douglas Martinez got suspended. And honestly, it's a huge wild card, right? Because there are two ways that Monarchs can go about this when you lose your chief attacking focus. You know, you can talk about Jack Blake being the chief playmaker, and that's great. But the whole attack revolves around Douglas Martinez
Someone's
being
gotta
able to do his
finish
job.
it, right?
And no one
Yeah.
else on that roster has the exact same wherewithal in front of goal. So there are two ways they can go about it. They can try to really settle into like a 5-4-1 or something. Olave, that's kind of his wheelhouse. If you're going to look at his playing days, he's going to trust his center backs. And he's going to say, look, we're going to put 3 of you out there. We're going to make it really difficult to break down. 80th minute, we're going to flip a switch. We're going to see how it goes. And we're going to hope that long we're able to hold it in to the point where extra time comes in, and that's our game. So we're not trying to beat them in 90 minutes. We're trying to keep it a condensed game that only takes 40 minutes. But that also means your lineup is different, right? And you're benching a lot of key players there. You could do that. Alternatively, you say, look, we trust our backup. We truly believe that the person who's been shadowing, the person who's been doing spot starts, right? Martinez only started 22, 24 games. That's not a whole season. So there's someone else who has started. You trust that player, right? And every coach wants to trust their depth, wants to tell their team every player is valuable. You could go that route, and you could play the same way. I just don't know if that's how you win on the road in a USL championship final.
I will say what's interesting about this Monarch side is that you have 8 players who have been involved in the finishes up until this point, whether it's an assist or goal. 8 different players involved in that final attack.
Right.
So there's obviously been people filling in the holes there. Obviously, that's not all Douglas Martinez.
It's not, but, there's the players who actually are finishing those chances, and there's the player who's the decoy, who's opening space for those other players to score. Because every attack for the last, you go ahead. You had something.
I did not expect you to come in this way. I think it's so interesting that you think that they're going to pack the box.
It'd be fun. It would be, but they have the midfield to do it. Certainly, you could even do it a 5-3-2 in a certain way. I like that midfield trio that they've been running out lately. You know, I think that Blake and Mulholland work really well together in being able to do some of the dirty work, but also still work on pushing the ball forward and still being able to move the game forward. Blake is the best free kick specialist, in my opinion, in the USL Championship. That's a huge asset for them to bring into a game where you're going to have to make the most of those chances because you're not going to have a 50-50 wide open game. You're going to have to make the most of every single opportunity you have around the box, and he's the kind of player who can do that. It's going to be very difficult for them. I do think that what was, and I think I said this actually for Nicholas Murray today on your website, it was going to be a difficult ask to say it's a 50-50 game. It's not a 50-50 game anymore. It's not. But that doesn't mean they can't win it. And I do think that they have the talent on this roster to be able to pull off an upset. But come on, we're in Louisville. We're here. They're trying to win 3 in a row. That's a lot of pressure, but that's a lot of experience. Their players getting their 4th rings if they win. That's huge. The cards are definitely stacked against them at this point. I'll say that much.
So if you had a go prediction here, and please, dear God, tell me you'll give me something more than Ryan Madden gave me in this scenario.
A good game and a lot of fun. Yeah, how's that?
Yeah. Tell what do you have on
I think
Sunday
I
night?
put on your website, I meant to put a different score, but apparently I typed it wrong.
Jesus, isn't that your
So,
job?
I know. I'm going to say it's
Do
the
you
editor.
type for a living or something?
I'm going to
I don't
say
know.
it's my editor's fault, but I'm just going to say what's on your website. 3-1 Louisville.
To be honest, that was going to be my final score prediction,
There
and
you
I
go.
kind of feel like the steam was just taken away from me a little bit.
It's all right. Live a little.
Apparently, we're just really good at what we do.
We're very good at what we do.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
it's
think
blonde.
so.
It's like blonde telekinesis at that point. We're just like 3-1 Louisville.
Jeff
Lock it in.
Ruder, the most publicized and appeared guest this year on Steele.
No other
Sometime.
guest has been on multiple times. I've been on 3.
Our dude, Jeff Ruder, thanks for coming on and sharing your
Anytime.
expertise with us.
Anytime.
I'll scoot over and pass mics. How about that?
That's beautiful.
Somehow Scott Steele has found his way into more bourbon, and I'm starting to get nervous about how this show's going to end.
I think she's making erroneous claims that can't be proven off camera. So
Scott Steele, we've gone through multiple predictions at this point. Will you get off my sweater? Jesus. Who do we have on Sunday? This is what happens when you shoot a podcast in a bar. Sunday night,
I think-
7:30, ESPN
yeah.
2, ESPN Deportes, in case anybody wasn't paying attention.
are we just jumping in like Jeff style, just
Well,
going for
I
it?
don't know what you've been doing the last 30 minutes, but we've been kind of breaking down what we think is going to happen and just talking tactics
Did you
and
just say
things.
the last 30 minutes as if I've been gone for half of your lifetime or something? All right. Yep. That makes sense.
Yes, Matt Calvo is telling us that we need to wrap this show.
Yeah, that I understand
So-
wholeheartedly. I mean, you have been on the entire show, so it might be time to shut
Carrying
this
the
down.
weight, stew in for more Steele sometime.
All right. You first, me first. Who do we want to do here?
I totally feel like everything's been taken away from me. I was going to go 3-1 in Louisville.
Do you want to make your prediction or do you want to hear mine?
That was gonna
that's
be
that's
my
what I'm
prediction.
saying.
Jeff,
3-1?
Jeff totally stole my thunder.
Well, go ahead. I mean, do you have something
still think
different? Do you
I-
want to just stick with it?
No, I want to stick. I still think it's going to be 3-1 Louisville.
3-1
I think
Louisville.
that Louisville's going to strike first. I think that Monarchs are going to equalize, and
Oh,
then
Oh boy.
I think that Louisville's just going
You
to
know
run
how
away with
big of a
it.
fan I am of like in-depth predictions too, like who's scoring in what minute, who's scoring in this minute.
I do want the public to know that we have Scott Stew's predictions from like August of the season. We'll talk about it next week. They aren't great.
The recap pod,
Recap
Wow.
pod.
aka pure sadness.
All right, Stu, what you got?
1-0, Louisville.
That is not where I thought this was going.
1-0, Louisville.
You think they're going to
just like
sit
17,
and
just like 18.
and wait and feel it out?
No,
They're
I
gonna
think
get it early.
Louisville will score within the first 15 minutes, and then they will absolutely shut it down. And here's the thing: both sides will have plenty of chances. I think both sides will have at least two. Both sides at least 2 clean looks at goal. Louisville 1-0.
Who? It's my favorite question because he can't choose. It hurts him.
It really does. On like a deep level, it hurts me to be able to even like have to choose this.
It's got to be
I
Magnus,
said
right?
Luke last weekend, and he scored the penalty for the 3-1, not the winner. You know what? I think this is a savvy. This is sort of like a veteran pick here.
I can't with this guy.
I'm going Niall McCabe, one of
Yes,
the
give
Lou City
Niall
OGs.
his- yes.
One of the Lou City OGs. I think Niall McCabe lifts Louisville City to victory in the 2019 USL Championship Final. I think the Monarchs come very, very close. I think that needs to be said and publicized over and over again. But yes, I do think that it is Niall's game to win.
Overwhelmingly 4 for 4 on Louisville picks. Again, I think that one feeds into we're talking about what we know from history. Illinois Side's never won. And again, we're talking about it being Lou City hosting at Lynn Stadium.
Correct.
They're in their home. They've never lost
can
a
I
postseason match. in Louisville.
momentarily inquire about the 3-1 though? Like what makes both you and Jeff so inclined to think this is going to be like action packed, like high intensity, but more importantly, high scoring? Like I can get on board with high energy, but
We can talk.
4
I'm ready.
goals?
I'm ready. I think that I told you earlier that I think the Monarchs are going to press early, and I think what's that's gonna do is present a lot of opportunities for quick counters on Louisville's part. And I think that especially on the counter, that Louisville's going to finish those opportunities with the Coopers screaming and everything kind of happening in that area there. And again, I think that on top of that, if Louisville has a lead, they're going to push it into the ground.
And that's
kind of
fair.
where I
That's
land
fair.
on that.
The only other player I have to throw out just because I've been kind of waiting is Brian Ownby. If we're going the counterattack route,
Yeah.
I watched this man take 4 Phoenix Souls last year on a solo run circa the 70th minute. I would love to see something similar, but I do think that Brian is very capable of lifting a Louisville team if they need it. I'm still going to stick with Niall in this case, but I think that that's the tough thing for you and I, though. There are so many people on both teams who have more than enough to lift their side to
There is
victory.
no question. I mean, talk about their time and time again, Louisville calls on a different person to step up.
And if we go Monarchs, I'm going Jack Blake.
I love that.
I'm
I
going
think
Michael
that's a great
Chang.
storyline.
I'm going Michael Chang involved.
Yeah.
I'm going Luke Mulholland with something unexpected. Like, I think that it is still there for the Monarchs. But if I had to put it on paper, since we can't bet very clearly,
Can't put that on record. USL employees cannot bet.
if I had to put it on paper, I'm going Niall. I'm going 1-0. Just history.
First or
History's
second half? You
everything.
said first 15,
First
right?
half. Yep. First 15.
On a set piece?
No, I think it'll be run of play. It might be off a set piece routine, but I think it'll ultimately be run of play.
All right.
I love just
I
drilling down
know,
the
you
details.
really
Let's go
wanna,
13th
put it
minute just to have
every-
some fun in case something weird happens and they score in the 13th minute.
And Scott's going to predict the sex of your next baby or something.
Yeah,
That's
you
what
just
this
let
is
me
gonna
know what
like,
you need.
yeah.
The Nostra Scottmas is very much alive.
All right, we got to get Scott out of here. He's got a whole line of bourbon waiting for him over there.
Nina was not
at the
thrilled
bar.
with that
Nina's
pick.
not thrilled.
We must at least reference the fact that Nina just gave me the ultimate eye roll.
Our lovely social media coordinator, Nina Cusmano, is on site. Thank you guys for tuning in. We've got predictions 4 for 4, Louisville City FC, first ever live podcast here in Louisville at Hotel Distill. Thank you, Hotel Distill, for having us.
Thank you, Hotel Distill. Thank you,
Mhm.
Louisville City staff, USL staff who are
Yep.
present, Monarch staff who are present. This is going to be quite the occasion for many reasons.
I think it is. ESPN2, ESPN Deportes, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, November 17th. Scott and I are going to check out now. We've got quite a few Louisville City FC fans here that I think that we're going to need to socialize with. I think Scott's going to connect with a few old buddies. Thank you guys for tuning in,
Seems a
and most
stretch.
importantly, tune in on Sunday night because it's
Amen.
going to be a good one.
Amen. Let us know. Let us know also. I mean, who do you think's going to win, right?
Yeah,
Tell
let
us.
us know.
Please tell
yeah,
us.
yeah. I'm curious if you guys are totally on a different page. So let us know.
It's at Kelsey J. Steele. So let her plug her handle here real quick. And you just, I'll be waiting.
It'll be great. For the last time in the postseason,
Wow.
Scott Stew, Kelsey Steele, Matt Calvo behind all the technology. Thank you to Ryan, Matt, and Jeff Reuter for stopping in for the final time. In Louisville,
This is
we
it.
will
We'll
know
see.
our title winner.
Talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys.